is 2 o'clock, so I will get us started to ensure we can get through everything and also leave some time for questions. But again, glad to have everybody here with us today for saving money when feeding your family. And to kind of kick us off this afternoon, I've just got a really quick poll just because it's nice for Kelly and I to be able to know why you are here today. Are you joining today's webinar because you are interested for personal use, for professional use, or maybe just a little bit of both? Great, give you just a few more seconds. All right, and I'll share those on the screen just so you all can see as well. But it looks like we've got about 69% or so here for personal use, 9% for just professional, and then 23% or so are here for just a little bit of both. And with it, all of this is great. We're going to touch on tips I think that you'll be able to integrate into your personal life as well as share professionally if that's what you so choose. So first off, my name is Nikki Johnson. I'm an extension educator with the University of Minnesota Extension, as well as North Dakota State University Extension. And co-presenting with me today, I've got Kelly Kunkel, who is also an extension educator with the Health and Nutrition Program for the University of Minnesota. And today we are going to talk all about saving money when going to the store. So we're going to talk about some different approaches to save money when you're at the store. We're also going to talk about some strategies to save money on food before and after the shopping trip, as well as just highlight some resources for you for smart saving. Now, I'm sure all of you are very familiar with the fact that our food prices are definitely rising, and that inflation level varies depending on whether or not your food that you're purchasing is coming from the grocery store or if it's like away from home, like a restaurant. But we know that these food costs have gone up dramatically. According to the USDA's Consumer Price Index, food prices are approximately 9.4% higher than they were in April of last year. Does anybody want to cringe when they hear that figure? Maybe a little bit, right? And because of these rising costs, we want to make sure that we're still able to stick to our budget, stick to our plan, and not spend all of our money at the grocery store. And so eating a well-balanced diet, a very healthy diet is important, but it can be kind of overwhelming and challenging when you're trying to make those healthier food choices, knowing that those food prices are going up. And so we are here to help you kind of navigate this tricky endeavor of rising food costs and still being able to go home with healthy, well-balanced meals for yourself and your families.
So now we're going to take a look at the top 10 ways to save money at the store when you're buying groceries. And we're going to start with number 10, which is using leftovers, making sure that those leftovers get used. If it's not a deal unless you use it, if you throw it away, that's money thrown away. And if you call them leftovers or do-overs or encore meals, it's just so important to make sure that they're consumed, making sure that they are a part of your menu planning, part of your meal. So something that you make in the evening meal might be lunch later on in the week. We know that each year a family of 4 loses about $1,500 a year in uneaten food. So not only is that a huge cost to the consumer, but it also really impacts our environment and the health of our environment because that's edible food that goes into the landfill. Think about your family and what you might do with $1,500 extra in your budget. So we want to make sure that we use those leftovers, making sure that we rotate them and we can see them in the refrigerator. If you can't get to them in time before they spoil, most things, not everything, but most things can be frozen. And if you put it into the freezer, be sure to mark what it is and when you put it in, because when it's frozen, everything looks the same. And so if it might look like spaghetti or sauce, or it might look like tomato soup. Who knows what you're getting as you're pulling it out. So making sure that you mark what it is.
Do you have a favorite leftover, Kelly?
Oh, I love chili leftover.
Mm,
Chilies and casseroles always taste better the second time. If you can let it sit and wait. And
mm.
and chili is another one of those things that freezes very well. Things like egg salad, pasta salad, they don't freeze well at all. So um, just making sure to use those encore meals. In our family, what we did when my children were young is they would, we would pull out all of the little pieces of each meal. You know, you might have a serving of each thing that you ate over the week, and we'd have what we called buffet night. And we'd heat up all of the food and put it in a buffet line. And that is the night that every child would make it to the table as quickly as they could, because the first person in line got the first choice in the meal. And so it was a good way to use those leftovers. Another great way is to think about serving family style and letting people serve themselves, because they generally take only what they're going to eat. If it's plated for them, they might waste that food that's on that plate. And so we can always go back, but it's hard to then see that food go to waste. You know, and sometimes we have just those leftover tablespoon or two of vegetables, right? If you have a container that you can put into your freezer, and every time you have just a couple of tablespoons of vegetables, put it in that freezer container, put it in the freezer, and after a while, you'll have enough to make a soup or a stew for another time. So it's just some things to think about when using those leftovers. So what's number 9? Consider store or generic brands. Those foods are often made on the same production line. They just have a different label. And you can generally spend a lot less on store or generic brands versus those name brand products. Brand loyalty can be a very expensive habit. I know that there are people that are very brand loyal to certain things. For example, at our house, it's peanut butter. There's a certain type of peanut butter, I'm not naming names, but that is the favorite peanut butter, and everything else feels inferior. So that's a situation where I make sure I look for sales. So when that brand of peanut butter goes on sale, I'll stock up, or I'll look for coupons for that particular brand. Oh, this one came into the chat quite a bit. Shopping alone. You know, the people that you shop with will influence what your purchases are. We saw very clearly that going with your spouse can change the whole dynamic of the shopping experience. And it's wonderful to have children involved in that shopping experience, because they are then more invested in the foods that they are eating if they can help to select it. But just know that that can really influence your purchasing at the store. And so it might cost you a little bit more in the long run as you are shopping with others. Number 7 is to read the label. So you're spending this money on the groceries that you're going to eat and consume, and you want to get the best amount of nutrients for your buck, the best amount of good nutrition that you can. And one way is to make sure that you read the label. And there's the daily values guide that can help to show us which foods are, especially as we're comparing different foods. So know that if you look at the daily value, the 5% or less is low, and 20% or more is high. So as we're looking at this frozen lasagna recipe, we know that it is higher in sodium at 37%, and higher in saturated fat because it's about the 20%, so at 23%. And it really helps to do some label comparisons as we go along. And a way to look at saving money when looking at labels is to go at times that are not peak times at the grocery store, because there's nothing worse than trying to compare those labels when the store is extremely busy. So number 6 is to know your store. Generally, we go to 1 or 2 stores for the most part, and we're pretty consistent about the grocery stores that we go to. And if you know the general layout of your store, you can actually put your shopping list according to the layout of the store. The store is set up in a way to get us to part with our money. I want you to think of any grocery store that you go to. As you're walking in the front door, where is the milk? A frequently purchased item. Where's the milk in relationship to the front door? It's always to the back, isn't it? Always. And is it a direct line? Generally not. They've got end caps and they've got these bins like you see here with the special deals that kind of attract our eye to it. Things that are more expensive tend to be at eye level as opposed to things that are higher or lower, which tend to be a little bit less. Grocery stores have these things like banks and pharmacies and hair places, salons that you can that really encourage us to stay a little bit longer in the store, so that the longer we stay in the store, there's more likelihood of us making an unplanned, unintentional purchase. As I'm waiting for my prescription, and it takes 15 minutes, I can do a lot of damage to my pocketbook in 15 minutes. And so just recognizing that the longer we stay in the store, the more we are more likely to purchase things. It's so tempting. One of the ways that I have found that really helped me during COVID was online shopping. And we were just talking about the longest I was able to go without grocery shopping was a month and a half. But by going online shopping, I had to do the planning ahead of time, check what was missing in my ingredients in my pantry and what I still needed. And I wasn't able to just kind of pick something up off the shelf because somebody else had done the shopping for me. And in the store I use, if the dollar amount is over $80, there was no cost to having that. And so I found that way, I was able to then save some money on that with that online shopping. Hey, Nikki, what is one of your tips as you're going through the store?
Kelly and I were giggling about this earlier. So this know your store, I like going to the same grocery store because if I can avoid my tempting aisles or sections, we'll say like the ice cream aisle, it really works in my favor. Because if I go down that ice cream aisle, it's pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to walk out with something. If I can know my store and kind of avoid that space, it's going to save me money and it's going to save me some calories in the long run too. I made a mistake earlier. Well, I shouldn't say mistake. I brought my daughter with me earlier this week when I did my grocery shopping. And we needed to do a big stock up and she wanted to go down that aisle. And wouldn't you know, I inevitably came home with some ice cream that I hadn't planned for. But yeah, knowing your store, knowing that layout can definitely help you to avoid maybe some of those more tempting sections.
Absolutely. And it depends. Different foods are placed on shelves in different ways. And so if you go through the cereal aisle with a small child in a cart, you'll see that a lot of the cereals, the expensive cereals that are sugary and really geared for children or marketed to children, are at eye level for those children that are sitting in that cart. And so just there's a lot of different ways that stores encourage us to spend our money at the store. So what's number 5? Shop after you've had a snack or a meal. That one came up in the chat as well. If you're hungry, everything looks good. And as we walk into the store, it's so enticing to see those the fruits and vegetables. It's almost theatrical how they look. And sometimes it's the bakery that's the first thing. And doesn't that bread smell great as you're walking into the store? But if you're hungry, it even looks and smells better. So try to have at least a snack or a meal beforehand. And sometimes we get all done and we feel like, okay, I'm done with grocery shopping. I just don't like this. It's been so stressful. I deserve a reward. And so what's the last thing as you're checking out? Well, that's usually a sodas right on the end, or a snack or a candy bar that just really looks enticing, especially if you're feeling like you're hungry. Number 5, make a list of the foods that you need to buy and then make sure that you bring it along. Please tell me I'm not the only one that makes a list and sometimes forgets to bring it. And then I try to recollect what I needed to make. So try to bring a list along. You may need to substitute similar items. Maybe sometimes, especially right now, sometimes stores don't have a certain food and you'll need to substitute. But for the most part, try to stick to the list that you bring along and try not to make those unplanned purchases. Number 3, clip and use coupons only for items that you're going to use. Now, certainly things have changed a lot in the coupon world, right? We oftentimes don't see newspapers, or the coupons might be online, or there might be a coupon app for your phone. But the fact remains, it's not a deal if it's a product you're not going to use. And so just because you have the coupon, it might be enticing to get it. But take a look at comparable items too, even if it is something that you use. So it might still be that the store brand is cheaper than the name brand with the coupon. And just seeing which is the best deal for you. And try to know what your regular items that you purchase are and have an idea of what they cost. You always get milk, for example, or you always get this kind of shredded wheat. Kind of have a running idea of how much that is so you can do some comparison prices over time. And then be alert for any unadvertised store specials. Sometimes they'll have deals right within the store itself where you can save money. Number 2, check out the newspaper ads or the special sales. Again, in my area, I know that on Tuesdays, that's when the new flyers come out, the new sales ads for the grocery stores. So that's often when I will take a look at what's available, what I need to purchase, what I want to purchase, what's on sale. They usually have something called a price leader, which is a product at extremely low amount than it normally is. And that's there to help, and again, entice us to go into the store, encourages us to go to that store maybe versus another store. And so looking at those sales can help to kind of plan what I'm going to make. Okay, is there a drum roll? We need a drum roll for the number 1 way to save money at the grocery store.
Before you do that, Kelly, oh, sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was just gonna mention too, paying really close attention to those grocery store ads, because sometimes they'll be like 3 for $5 or something like that. But you don't actually have to buy all 3. You can still buy, one of those items for the discounted price. But if you pay really close attention, it'll say on there, must buy all 3, or it won't say that. So that can help
Yes.
to save some dollars too.
Absolutely, it absolutely will save some dollars because it's a great deal. But be cautious about, again, food waste. So sometimes those buy one get one free is such a great thing to do. I was thinking of potatoes once. It was buy one bag of 5-pound bag of potatoes, get one for free. I couldn't get through the 5-pound bag with my family, and the second would have been thrown away, but I don't give it to somebody else. And so that's what I ended up doing. It was still a deal, but I didn't want it to be something that would have been wasted. Number one on our top 10 ways of saving money at the store is menu planning. It is the first step to healthy eating on a budget, and it is so beneficial in general to have a general plan for snacks and meals that you want to have, and go as infrequently to the store as possible, trying to go with that 1 week at least, if not 2 weeks before going to the store, because again, the more times we go to the store, the more times we are going to purchase those 20-gallon of milk. We only go to the store for milk and end up spending $20 or more. And so that is definitely harmful to our household budget. And Nikki is going to continue and talk about menu planning.
Thanks, Kelly. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these top 10 ways to save at the store in a bit more detail. And this time we're going to start with that number one. So menu planning. Planning your meals at home before you go shopping can definitely save you from spending that extra cash on last minute lunches, or I'm super tired, so I'm in that tired mode takeout. Like I don't want to cook dinner. I don't want to think about what I have to get at the store. So I'm just going to go make it easy on myself and, get pizza or something like that. Having a menu will help you to kind of stay on target, knowing that you have the food on hand at home, but it also can help you from buying unnecessary grocery items. Now, when we think about menu planning or meal planning, this is going to be best done in 7-day cycles or so. Even if you only shop once or twice a month, having this meal plan for 7 days at a time is a best practice. Kind of after you've come up with your planned meals, the next step is going to be writing down your grocery list. Thinking about all the necessary ingredients that you're going to need for each menu item. Then you're going to want to check what's on hand. What do you already have at home? Cross out the items that you already have, thinking about your cupboards, your freezer space, your refrigerators, your herbs and spices. What do you already have? And then the rest goes on your shopping list, of course. Then, as Kelly mentioned, we'll want to look at our weekly ads or those different circulars. And again, whether or not that's via your email, an app on your phone, or you like that tried and true paper copy that gets mailed out, whatever it is. But you can utilize those circulars to figure out if there's any deals and maybe do some adjusting on your list for side dishes or additions to your meals, snacks, and so on. Now, a really nice place to start off when you are doing your menu planning is by writing down a list of your favorite foods or favorite meals. So I want us to pause for a minute. I want you to think for a moment, grab a piece of scratch paper, grab a pen or a pencil, or maybe you want to make a note in your phone, whatever you want to do. But I want us just to take a minute or two here, and I want you to write down some of your favorite foods or favorite meals to have at home. And I should have had my music queued up, Kelly. Sorry, totally forgot. But let's just spend a couple minutes kind of brainstorming there. Think about some of your favorite meals. And again, this can be a really nice place to start. If you can kind of figure out what that main meal is going to be, it's easier to plug in some of those side dishes or snacks or things like that. But this will give you a really nice kickoff to your menu planning or your meal planning. One thing that I do in my household so that I know everybody ends up happy, and also takes a little bit of pressure off of me. I actually make one person in the house, or each person in the house, choose one of their favorite meals. So mom gets to pick a meal, both my girls get to pick a favorite meal that we're going to add to the menu for the week, and my husband gets to pick meal. That's at least 4 meals to kind of kick us off for our menu planning and then our grocery list. Oh, love it. David's already kicking us off. Now, it's helpful sometimes to get inspiration from those around you, because I know I sometimes get stuck in a rut and need some inspiration from others. So I'd love for you all to share into the chat. What's one of your favorite meals that you like to have at home? What's that first item you wrote down on your menu list? I see one pot meals like chili or stew, crock pot pulled pork, chicken fajitas, enchiladas, tacos, chili. Ooh, a Buddha bowl. Salads, spaghetti, miso soup and wontons. Oh, love this. Enchilada, spaghetti, squash butts. I'm thinking we're gonna have to share recipes in here too with this list that's coming up. Lentil sloppy joes, love that. Thank you. Excellent. I keep those favorite meals coming. But again, that's a really nice way to start off your menu planning and your meal planning for the week and getting inspiration for that grocery list. Another way you might want to work on creating your menu or your menu plan is by selecting your protein source or your main entree and then creating your meal kind of around that. So you'll see two different examples here on the screen. In the top left, they chose there to have a different protein source for each week, get a nice mix of variety of your protein sources. And they then came up with their main entree based upon that particular protein source. Oh, and we're adding stuff in here. Okay, love this. And this can be a really nice way to ensure, again, you're getting a mix of different nutrients because you're getting protein from a variety of sources, and just kind of change things up so your taste buds don't get bored. I love that idea. Another option is down at the bottom here, coming up with some sort of theme. Now, this is sort of a fun way to think about meal planning. They did a meatless Monday where they're focusing on a protein that's not coming from an animal source. So they eggs or beans or lentils or something along those lines. Mexican breakfast for lunch is really fun. Who doesn't love pancakes at any time of the day? So, just kind of utilizing one of those themes to help come up with your menu planning. And again, once you've kind of come up with your main entree, that gives you a great jumping off point. Then as you're kind of building your list, you can see what types of sides might work for one day and then can be tied into the next. So not necessarily a leftover, but it might be a planned over. I know, for example, this week I bought a really large container of Brussels sprouts. I love roasted Brussels sprouts. And so I actually used them, roasted them on a sheet pan the other day for dinner. I knew I was going to have more of those, but they're loaded with nutrients. So I actually roasted a few up for my lunch today too. Two different meals, but I was able to utilize that side item twice. So I kind of planned over, if you will. Now, Kelly did talk about leftovers, and I just want to dig into this a little bit more because using leftovers can really just help you to save time and money. It's just a smart thing to do. So when you make a plan that uses food, you can try to utilize things that might be already in the freezer, the fridge, in the pantry, and that means there's going to be fewer items on your shopping list, which means there's going to be less food being purchased or wasted. And you can kind of plan how to use your leftovers and also make sure that you have a way to use all the produce and other perishables that you can easily end up in the trash, right? So when you're using these things creatively, leftovers can really add a lot of variety to your meals. I know Kelly gave a great example of if you've got just a little leftover set of veggies, all right, let's put it in a container, put it in the freezer, and eventually when you have enough of them, you can make a very delicious veggie soup with a whole mix of different vegetables, or perhaps you want to use a stir fry. But setting it aside and being able to use it in another way very creatively. I will say this: make once, eat twice mentality saves me a ton of time and stress during the summer months when I have extra bodies home during the day. When my kids are home from school and I'm thinking about lunches and not just that dinner meal, because we've got breakfast and lunches that we're taking care of. This make once, eat twice helps me tremendously. I can give an example. Last night we had tacos. Family favorite, it's great, but we always have a little bit left over. We never get through the whole package of meat, all the side items and things like that. So guess what I am having for lunch tomorrow? I'm having a taco salad. I'm able to utilize some of those dinners for my lunches, which makes things just so much easier. Again, I don't have to put a lot of thought into it. Another way you can think about this make once, eat twice is utilizing different foods or ingredients for one meal in another way at a later meal. So one way you might be able to do this, I'll use ground beef as an example here again too. Oftentimes during the school year, my girls love spaghetti. And we just can't go through the whole package of the ground beef. But instead of cutting that amount in half and cooking half and putting the other half in the fridge, I'll cook up the whole batch right away. I'll use half of it for my spaghetti, and then I'll put the other half aside and maybe use it for sloppy joes a couple days later. So it's multi-purpose. I can use it for 2 separate meals.
Good one. So this is Teresa.
I also would encourage folks to really think about your storage containers as well as storage times when planning to use your leftover foods. I will say I have fallen victim to the trap of having making sure I had leftovers, but not being really planful or mindful of how I was going to utilize them. And so unfortunately, they ended up being a waste. So really think about the containers and how long they're going to be, how long you can store them. Investing in some really nice storage containers that last in the freezer can be well worth the investment, so that you're not having to throw away leftovers because of they became freezer burnt. That's such a bummer when you're like, oh, this meal was so good, I was planful, put it in the freezer, and then I had a bad storage container and ended up having to toss it. Nobody wants to do that. So think about those storage containers as well. Ooh, I love that idea, Rachel. Keep an eraser board on your fridge and write what leftovers are in the fridge freezer. Fantastic. So let's kind of keep digging into this menu planning, right? You know, we've written down kind of our main entrees. We've maybe come up with our side items, our snacks, maybe I'll call them a secondary meal, our lunches and our breakfast, which isn't always top of mind. But we want to make sure that once we have those meals kind of set up and thought about, we want to be ready to shop. So to do that, we're going to make a list of all the ingredients that are going to go into each of those dishes, as well as the side items. So I know when I was planning for my tacos the other day, it wasn't just ground beef. I also needed to make sure I had lettuce. I needed black olives. I needed tomatoes. I needed cheese, all of the things, right? All of those I was going to need to go into my tacos, but what did I actually have on hand, and what did I need to purchase? So preparing that list of ingredients and then checking your inventory. Now, sometimes when I think about checking my inventory, I get very single-minded in thinking about what's in the refrigerator and tend to forget to check the inventory in my freezer as well as some of my cupboards. So when you're getting ready to shop, I definitely encourage you to spend some time not only writing down that list of ingredients, but going through the inventory to ensure that you're not doubling up and purchasing extra ingredients that you already have on hand. And so you can utilize what you do have on hand so that it doesn't go to waste. I was actually really good about this the last time I went to the grocery store, and was able to utilize my black olives that I already had on home. And I remembered that I had a can of corn, so I could add that to our taco toppings for the evening. Once you've got your beautiful list, and I should point out, there isn't one way to go through or to make your grocery list. Some people like a good old pen and paper. Myself, I like a pen and paper. I like to write it down on my notebook. For some reason, I feel great satisfaction in being able to cross something off when I use it in the grocery store. However, it doesn't have to be that way. If you like an app on your phone, feel free to utilize an app on your phone. Maybe you just jotted a quick note down on an envelope that you had handy. Maybe you take a picture of your list so that you don't forget it. You know, whatever it is, it's completely fine. Just know that you don't need to have some fancy special set aside list or menu planner in order to be able to do this. Find the system that works for you and run with it. But after you've got your list, you know exactly what ingredients you need to purchase. That's when you're going to utilize those weekly shopping circulars at your favorite grocery stores, and maybe just decide where you want to shop. It is a a best practice, if you will, to pick one store rather than trying to go to a bunch of stores to gather all of your ingredients. I realize sometimes maybe you got to make a second trip because, you know, your favorite store was out of something. But if you can limit it yourself to that one grocery store, that's going to work out the best for you, because less time you're in the store, the less likely it is that you're going to grab those extras. Kelly mentioned this too, but you want to clip and use those coupons only for foods that are on your list. I know it can be tempting at times, especially when those end caps are like, big sale, buy this. If it's not on your list and it's not a part of your menu plan, it's best to just stick to what's on the list and avoid those extras. And finally, organizing your shopping list. It's really helpful to arrange your shopping list by similar items and by the layout of the store. So in my grocery store, after I grab my cart, I'm immediately entering my produce section. So always on the first part of my list are my fresh fruits and veggies that I want to grab and gather. And then I kind of work my way around the perimeter of the store, only hitting those inside aisles when I absolutely have to. Because remember, if I go down the ice cream aisle, I will purchase it. So I try to avoid it. avoid it. So when you're at the store, Kelly mentioned this too, but grocery stores like to encourage us to buy more foods, right? That's how they make their money. So the location of the food items in the store can definitely influence the likelihood that you buy them. It's this choice architecture model. They place things in a spot that are going to influence you. So be aware again of those things at the end of the aisles, near checkout counters that are going to get your attention because they're really just trying to increase their sales. They're not always the best value. And what's interesting is you're kind of going around those end caps, or you're seeing the things at the end of the aisles. Oftentimes that's where customers are pausing to look at those displays and end up grabbing something that they hadn't planned on buying. So buyer beware. Shop the perimeter if you can. Oftentimes your optimal health or healthier items are going to be found in the perimeter. Again, think produce, think your meat market, your dairy section, your grains. A lot of times those are going to be on the perimeter of the store. So you can look in those areas to be thinking about health as well as savings, because you're not going down every single aisle. And I always encourage people to think about the store that they use most often as they're kind of building their grocery list. I know we have 3 grocery stores that are approximately the same distance away from our house. They're really, really close in proximity. However, all of them have a very, very different layout. It's kind of chaotic. And so I choose one as kind of my primary, and that's what I plan my grocery list around, is because I want to stick to that one store because I know where everything is. It helps me avoid going down those extra aisles and being swayed to purchase something extra or something that isn't on my list. So what about tips for each aisle or different area? How can we save in each of these different food groups? So if you look here, I'm talking about fruits and veggies kind of in that green section, grains in the orange, proteins in our purple, and blue is sort of our dairy section. There are tips for saving money for each of these different food groups. First, let's kind of look at that fruit and veggie section. So one way in which you can save money in produce, or when you're purchasing produce, is buying foods that are in season. When foods are in season, it usually means they're going to be less expensive and they're going to be at peak flavor, which is great, right? It's going to taste even better. One thing you want to keep in mind if you're buying fresh is that you want to buy only what you can use before it spoils. There are some really nice seasonal produce guides you can look at, which we will include at a later time. Don't worry about looking it up right now. We'll be sure to include that in some of our resources following our call today. Another thing that you can do if you are looking to save money on fruits and veggies is to choose items that are canned. You choose fruit that's canned in 100% fruit juice, or vegetables with low sodium or no salt added on those labels. Those items can be just as nutritious as fresh and oftentimes cost less. I have a nice mix of fresh produce as well as canned and frozen produce to kind of mix things up. And again, just depending on the price. So if you have freezer space, another really nice option for saving on your fruits and veggies is to go frozen. Oftentimes try to choose those frozen items that don't have extra sauces, butter, or added sugar, but they're just as good for you as those fresh. And again, oftentimes cost less. And of course, the shelf life on canned and frozen items are going to be much longer. So if you know that you're not going to be able to utilize maybe your fresh fruit as quickly, maybe frozen or canned is going to be a better option for you. When we think about grains, some tips are to make half your grains whole. Go for brown rice or oatmeal, whole oats, because they're going to be rich in nutrients and they keep you full longer. So while you're shopping, maybe you want to check those ingredient lists and pick the items that have a whole grain listed first. A couple of really budget-friendly options are going to be things like brown rice and pasta. They're filling as well as not too expensive. So it's nice to add into a meal option. And finally, for those grains, they're thinking about hot cereals, plain oatmeal, or even just like a whole grain dry cereal can be a really nice addition to your menu plan. For our protein foods, okay, some great low-cost protein foods are going to include things like beans, peas, lentils. That could be kidney beans, lima beans, garbanzo beans. But oftentimes those beans and lentils are going to cost a lot less than a similar amount for another protein food. Another way you might be able to lower your meat costs is to buy the family size or value pack and freeze what you don't use. I do this a lot at our house with poultry as well as ground beef. When you are choosing ground beef, often you should choose for the lean option, so that 90% lean ground beef to meet your nutritional needs. You can also look at different seafood options. So I think sometimes when people think about seafood, you're like, ooh, expensive. But you can buy those canned options, canned tuna, canned salmon, sardines. Those types of things store well and are a really nice low-cost option. And don't forget about the eggs. They're a great low-cost option that's really easy to prepare, and I'd say really versatile too. You can do all kinds of things with eggs. And finally, when you're trying to save and think about those dairy foods, oftentimes it's going to be less expensive for you to buy a larger option of, say, yogurt instead of the individual little flavored yogurts. So either opt for a plain, flavor it up yourself, or a vanilla. And again, adding your own fruit to flavor it up. And as always, you want to check the sell-by date when you are looking at your dairy products to ensure that you're getting the freshest products and you have the longest time in to be able to use them. So just another quick note on those beans. Basic foods like rice, beans, lentils are a really nice option to add into your menu plan in order to save money. And they're incredibly healthy for you. Actually, there's a whole mix of things, right? They're inexpensive, they're healthy, loaded with nutrients. They're really easy to prepare too. And what I think is they're super versatile. You can toss these into a salad, you can toss them into a pasta, you can toss them into a soup. And another great thing is that these can be one of those planned overs where you can make a large batch of, say, beans and use them in a variety of dishes later on. So if you're not already incorporating some of these basics like beans, rice, and lentils, think about maybe how you could incorporate that into your menu plan moving forward. And I just have to ask because I think they're so great and I'm always looking for new ideas, but what's your favorite bean or lentil dish? Go ahead and add that to the chat. Hummus, dal. I love both of these things. Ooh, red lentils, sweet potato curry. Yes, lentil soup. Black bean tacos. You know, I did have lunch, but looking at all these does make me a little hungry. Oh, love these. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you all. Feel free to keep adding. Okay. Kind of touched on some of this already, but you know, food highlighted as weekly specials might not always be the best buy for you and your family. Be sure to compare prices. Watch those pricing strategies like buy 3, get 1 free. Sometimes another brand will still cost less than the brand that is on sale, so pay attention. That's often true when we're looking at the generic or store brand products. Again, generic or store brand products are often produced as the same place as those name brand ones. They just don't have as fancy of a label, but they taste just as good. Quality is the same, but they are easier on your pocketbook. Another thing to think about is unit pricing. What is that? What is unit pricing? Well, the unit price tells you the cost per either pound, quart, or some other unit of weight of a food package. It is usually posted on the shelf below the food. And the shelf tag kind of shows the total price and the price per unit. So usually you can see that unit price. I know it's circled on the screen here for you, but oftentimes it's right underneath the total price for the item. You're going to want to use unit pricing to compare costs of different brands of the same type of food. This unit pricing can also make it easy to compare prices of different sizes of the same brand. So let's say I'm looking at a breakfast cereal. Do I want the normal size box, the family size box, or the mega size box? Well, if I am doing or checking out my unit pricing and doing some comparisons, I can actually see which box size is going to be the best or the cheapest option. You can also look for unit prices to look at different forms of food. So is the fresh option going to be more cost effective than the canned or the frozen? And again, you can choose the food item that has the lowest price per unit to save money. So I'm going to test you here. What's the best price or best buy? So if we're going to look at the unit pricing here, so again, that's the total price divided by the size. If I was going to buy either 1 pound of baby carrots or 2 pound of baby carrots, which one is going to be the lowest unit price? Haha, oh, I love, yes, little caveat there. Thanks, Vanessa. Right. Okay. I saw everybody was putting in 2 pounds and you are correct. If we are looking at 2 pounds, that's approximately 94, not quite 95 cents per pound. So it's about 4 to 5 cents per pound cheaper to get the 2 pounds. But I only want to get the 2 pounds if I'm going to utilize all of those baby carrots. Excellent. Let's do one more. What's the best buy here? Our gallon milk at $4.89 or our pint of milk at $2.10. I'm really making you do some math today. I bet you all weren't expecting that. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. The gallon is going to be way cheaper in this scenario. So if we look at a gallon of milk, there's 128 ounces. So I did the math on that. So it's just under 4 cents, is about 3.8 cents per ounce, versus the pint of milk where there's only 16 ounces. So that's going to be 13 cents per ounce. So the gallon of milk here is way cheaper when we're looking at that unit pricing. Oh, and Anna, yeah, but it might be too much milk. You got to do what's going to be the best for your family. We don't want to be wasting. So yeah, love it. So finally, let's just talk about some final tips on smart shopping that can help you to save money. The first thing I really just want you to recognize is that kind of getting into the swing of things when you're thinking about menu planning, when you're coming up with all of the different sides, the snacks, the secondary meals, if you will, going through your inventory. We know that can take time, and figuring out that right groove can take time too. You don't have to be perfect the first time you do this. If you forget the milk, it's all right. You can maybe fix that for the next time around, but it takes time to kind of get things figured out. And it is an investment that you are kind of making upfront, right? You're spending the time planning and making your menu at the beginning of the week per se, rather than utilizing time every single day to do planning. An easy, or excuse me, a nice way to help you to also save money is to shop when the store is less busy. There's less chaos going on around you. You can kind of just focus on what's happening, and making sure that you're checking out everything off the list so that you don't have to come back later in the week. Try to curb your I wants, okay? There's the things that you need on your list, and then you're like, ooh, but I kind of want this, or I kind of want that, or that kind of looks good. If you can curb those I wants, you can definitely save some money on your weekly grocery list, your monthly grocery list. And again, try not to buy foods that are not on your list. If you can stick to your list, even though I know that can be really difficult, it's going to really help you to stick to a budget, stay on target, and lessen the hit that your pocketbook takes at the grocery store. So thinking about all of what we've gone through so far, is there a specific money saving tip that you're most excited to try? We'd love for you to add that into the chat. And as you're doing that, I do want to keep us moving because we're getting a little close on time here. And we do want you to know that, hey, we're not going to leave you in the lurch and just give you this information and send you off on your own. We do want to give you some resources too. So what do we have for you? The University of Minnesota Extension has a phenomenal website that's got different categories thinking about recipes, cooking tips, shopping tips, and that is going to be our real life good food Minnesota Extension website. You don't have to memorize this link here. Again, we will add this into a follow-up email, but just know that this website has all kinds of healthy tips, recipes, things like that that you can utilize, maybe use for inspiration to add to your menu planning. NDSU Extension also has some really fantastic different recipes that you can utilize. Not only are they nutritious, they're tested. We give you all the nutrition information. Many of them come with picture step-by-step recipes that you can see, as well as some we even include some really short videos so you can see how the whole process goes from start to finish when you're making those healthy recipes. And one final extension site that we want to share with you that just has some phenomenal resources is Iowa State University Extension Spend Smart, Eat Smart. They have several different categories, and honestly, if you click into each one of those, you're going to find some really valuable information. But they have info on planning. What does it look like when you're planning? Different lists that you can utilize, some different tips that you might want to integrate into your own plan. They give you tips and tricks on shopping. They give you different recipes and tips and tricks on cooking. So we've got the whole picture that can be found here on the Iowa State University Extension site.
Another resource is our SNAP Ed program, and SNAP Ed is the University of Minnesota, but also North Dakota, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and that really helps to make the healthy choice the easy choice for people with limited financial resources, and serving all different audiences in your community on a variety of different topics, including the menu planning and the grocery shopping and cooking skills, and putting some physical activity into your life. Another great resource, if you haven't used it before, is myplate.gov. I often will be looking there for inspiration for recipes. I love reading recipes, and it helps me kind of think about what I would like to make for meals. And they also have a new app that you can put on your phone or look at it on the computer. It's Shop Simple with My Plate. And again, you can learn how to save money at the grocery store. You can find out ways to use cheaper products like those beans, and then includes recipes on how to make them. So be sure to put that on your phone. The University of Minnesota Extension also has a 2-week menu kit, and it's designed for two people in the household, but it can easily be adapted to more. And it includes the 2 weeks worth of menus, 15 recipes, and your shopping list. And sometimes, again, all you need is inspiration, and it's very adaptable. So if, for example, your family doesn't like broccoli, but you can then swap that out for another vegetable, and taking into consideration your dietary needs. So here's what the different menus look like. And again, trying to just give you some suggestions or ideas for inspiration for how to plan your menus. I really like the shopping list as well. It's just something that you can just check off and use. It uses a lot of non-perishable and canned items with some easy to store and prepare perishable items that last a little bit longer. So you may already have some of those pantry staples in your cupboard. And so you can just make sure that they're there. Don't assume that they're still in the cupboard, but make sure that they're still there, and then check it off, because those are the things that I often forget of, those pantry staples, because I don't purchase them as often. And so making sure that you can just check those off as you go. And then it includes the recipes as well. And all of this information is available in Spanish as well.
And I just gotta say, those recipes, Kelly, many of them also have the videos too. So if you want to see it being made, it's awesome. You just gotta go to that site.
Perfect. Thank you. So we are at the end of our time very soon. If you need a certificate of participation, be sure to do the evaluation, take the evaluation. Nikki's going to put that in the chat for us. And if you are a University of Minnesota employee and you would like well-being points, which is really exciting, we can now offer well-being points, and there's 200, you get 200 well-being points per webinar beginning in May, and you can watch them live or as a recording, and both will serve as your well-being points. And again, just filling out that the evaluation. Oh, and the question is, will we send out the links for the menu kits and recipes? Absolutely, yes. Like Nikki said, we're not going to leave you. We'll be helping you out with that. So with the evaluation, if you can complete this as soon as possible, and then watch in 30 days, we'll have a follow-up evaluation, and just wanting to know how you've used the information, or if you've used the information or the resources. We're really wanting to know. At that time, you'll also get a playlist of all the recorded webinars in the series. So if you weren't able to make all of the ones in this series, you'll get all of the recordings. And we've got some exciting upcoming webinars that we want to share. There's a whole series in Talks in Spanish. There's a series on finding balance. And then there's also a series called No Place Like Home. And all of our webinars are free and available to anyone. And we do send the recordings if you register, if you are not able to attend. Please engage with us and join us on all kinds of social media venues. And this is our contact information. And so now we've got some time to take some questions. And I saw earlier, one of the questions was about freezer containers and what kind of freezer containers should I be using? And I put some information from USDA about freezing, but some considerations for freezing containers: you want to make sure that they're freezer safe. And the containers will usually say so. Rigid containers work well. for freezing, make sure it has a tight lid that seals completely. This is not the time to get the butter dishes or the tubs or the Cool Whip containers out. You want something a little bit more sturdy and stable when you're freezing. You can use mason jars for freezing, but making sure that you leave plenty of headspace at the top for freezing, if you do use mason jars, and that they're in a place that doesn't tumble easily because they can crack and break in the freezer. And just remember those freezing times, and that information is in the chat, and we'll send you that information as well about good freezing times and temperatures. Freezer bags are another option, but those aren't something that you'll be able to use again. And so investing in some good containers, freezer containers that you can use over and over again is very beneficial.
And with that, that puts us at time. I know Kelly and I can hang out for a few minutes if there are additional questions, but if not, thank you all so much for joining us today.